Right, here we go. So, I'm assuming I've got everything set up correct, but that is just an assumption. Let me begin explaining what my plan is. This is 2024 Alpha, and I know lots of other people have already put out videos. My video is the intent is to kind of show things like performance and that kind of stuff, and partially some scenery and whatnot, but mostly about performance and how it actually does or doesn't work, how well it will or will not work. My system is a Ryzen 7 5800X3D processor. I've got 32 gigs of DDR4 memory, a 4080 NVIDIA RTX 4080 graphics card. I run a 4-monitor system. My primary monitor is going to be is a 2K monitor. I don't run a 4K monitor. It's running on 2K. So this is kind of the system that I'm actually that I'm running this all on. So you get the understanding of the specs. So I'm not running the highest end specs out there. And again, the reason for that is because I don't have a big high-end machine, but you'll be able to see how well or not this actually works. I have my frame rates capped at 150, and that's what you see up in that upper corner there, is at 150. I'm happy as long as I don't get stutters. I don't really care about the frame rates as much as I care about the stutters, and I want it to be smooth and that kind of stuff. So let's get into the sim. This is the splash screen. Lots of people have reported on how fast things get loaded and that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna go to Chicago. Chicago is one of those airports that my sim or my rig typically has problems with in 2020. So we're going to look at Chicago. We're going to look at a few places around the world that are, at least for me, known congestions spots. We only have, in the alpha test, we only have 3 aircraft, which will obviously change down the road. But right now, that's all we have is three actual aircraft. I'm going to be flying the 172. Those that know me don't know I'm not a big fighter jet guy. So, Chicago. Come on now. Let me get into Chicago. There we go. So we'll set our departure. It'll pick a runway for us, presumably. It's going to. Yeah, runway 28. And we're going to get in there. Now, like most people have reported on it, the load times are quite fast. Yeah, they're amazingly fast in comparison to the other sim 2020. You can see here we are. We're just about there. So from that opening screen to here, it's gone. You can see how fast it's actually gone. I noticed that when I'm first logging into the sim, when I'm first logging in, I do get a little bit of stutters and lags and that kind of stuff. Not a lot, but I do get some. So my frame rate 74, 76, 69 and that sort of stuff. That is better than it is in 2020. In 2020, my frame rates will sometimes drop down into the high 30s, 40s in that area. I might push 50, but that's a rarity that I get to 50 frame rates per second. And so you can see my frame rate is that. We're going to quickly look into the settings just so you can kind of see how I have my settings set in terms of graphics settings. So I am full screen, as I said, 2K, NVIDIA super sampling, auto I have it set for in here, and DLS frame generation is on, and the rendering quality. Now, I will say this, that when I'm flying 2020, I typically don't have everything set to ultra. I don't usually have terrain level of detail set to 200 and so forth. So my suspicions are that if I were to change this, to match my 2020 settings, the frame rates would be considerably higher. But I'm going to leave it on the default setting. When you first get into 2024 Alpha, it's going to look at your specs, and it's going to make a recommendation for settings, and that's what I've left it at, is those recommendations, with the exception of frame generation. That was not turned on. Why? I don't know, but it wasn't. Okay, so let's go for a little boot around here, and let's see how it works. I have spent some time setting up controls and that kind of stuff. I'm finding it a little more difficult to getting that set up, but it's only because it's just different. That's it. It's not right or wrong. It's just it's different. I do need to set my this one. No, this one. Yes. I need to set up my panels and get them working. Hopefully the sim doesn't crash on me when I do this, because that often can be the case. It may not have. I will be excited about that. It seems to be functional. Although my switches are not. That's weird. Oh, I turned that on. I wish I'd have turned that off. That's okay. Why is my switch panel not working? Well, it's not because it's already running. Okay, I know what I got to do now. Just in order for me to get my switch panels and all that working, I have to turn off this Logitech thing and then turn it back on, and then I have to shut one of the USB ports off from my autopilot panel and turn it back on, and then it seems to work. I'm sure there's a better way of doing it than the way I'm doing it, but that's the way I found it consistently works. Now, when I do that, at times the sim is going to crash on me when I toggle it back on and off. Okay. All right, so I should now have control. Oh, no, it's going to crash. Yeah, it's going to crash. That's okay. We'll let it crash, and we'll start it again. Yeah. Yeah. Well, such is life. I think I'm going to try to speed this process up along. Normally when this has happened to me, I've just waited and waited and waited for it to actually do the crash. Well, I didn't have to speed it along. So we'll start it again. We'll start it again. And this time you'll see how long it actually takes for the full load to actually take place. It's relatively quick. It's by far quicker than 2020. Now, I will say this, that lots of people are talking about this, how much quicker it is than 2020. But what we're not adding into the equation of all of this, even in terms of frame rates and that kind of stuff, what we're not adding into the equation is there isn't a lot of aircraft that's being loaded. There isn't a lot of custom scenery that's been loaded. There hasn't been a community folder that's been inundated with all kinds of various different things. And so we don't truly know how much that will actually make a difference when we actually get into the sim and put all the add-ons and that kind of stuff in. But as it stands right now, you can see how quick that actually loaded. We're going to get ourselves back to Chicago. Somewhere is Chicago in here. Come on. Down there is Chicago, right there. I guess I could have just typed the ICO code. I will apologize ahead of time. I have a bit of a cold, and so If I'm sniffling, I apologize for that. Like I said, I have a bit of a cold, and most of it is gone, but
All air tower SXGS ready.
Alright, here we
At
go.
runway 28 are departing straight out.
okay, so here we are. We're back in the sim. I'm just going to test. It still doesn't work. Yeah, it's gotta check that again. This is the one thing that I'm finding has been a bit of a nuisance, and that's to get these auxiliary panels that I have working. They just haven't worked, or they don't work as well as they do in 2020, typically. Now my fear is if I reset or recycle to get everything back up and running again, it's going to crash again. That's my guess. Oh, let's find out, shall we? Sometimes if I wiggle the camera, I feel like it mitigates whether it will or will not crash. So my autopilot panel does seem to be functioning. Okay, my flaps are functioning. Good. Okay, so here we are. I'm going to get the yoke out of the way. I'm going to get myself onto that. I'm going to do that. Now, as I said before, 70-ish frames a second. And again, like I said, if I were to switch things like I have it set in 2020, I've got some of those features turned down. Not everything is set for full ultra, but we're going to keep it full ultra here. And we're going to get ourselves in the air. Now, one of the things that I have noticed is the flight dynamics. To me, they feel a bit more, so you can see how the aircraft is kind of leaning over because of the wind. That seems to be more prevalent in 2024. We've heard that there are differences in 2024, some of the differences between 2024 and 2020, things like aerodynamics, the ground, some of the flight, how the flight characteristics are, how ground affects flight, that kind of stuff. So you can see as I'm flying around Chicago, 70-ish frames a second. All of those, I'm going to get rid of those things here shortly, but all of the tags you see, I think those are all commercial flights. I don't think there's any live flights happening here. But it's smooth. And that's, to me, that's really what I care about. It's smooth. So I've done a number of flights around the world to kind of get a gauge for, how you might experience your transition from 2020 to 2024. And I have come to the conclusion that in general, why are we beeping? What have I missed? All right, there we go. I have come to the conclusion that in general, there is a performance added to 2024 over 2020. Is that performance added at only because we don't have all the add-on aircraft, all the add-on scenery, and so on and so on? I don't know if that's the case. Streaming status is good. change the bit rate on the stream. How do I do that? Let's look at settings. Let's look at stream. Maximum bit rate. Okay. So I'm going to pause my stream here for a minute. Okay, I'm back in the stream again. I had a message that it wanted me to change the bit rate. Said the quality was too low for the bit rate, so I changed it. So here we are. Chicago off in the distance there, I believe. I'll bring up a little nav map that'll help me kind of discern where I am in this big world and all that good stuff. There I am. Okay, so O'Hara is right behind us, and that is the downtown, I guess it looks like. So yeah, at the end of the day, it feels like to me that there has been a performance in terms of frame rate and that kind of stuff. You know, but again, I will caution with, or I'll preface that statement with, I don't have all my hat on aircraft, all my hat on scenery, and all of that stuff. I don't have all of that stuff added into the sim. If I put all that into the sim, will there be, you know, a loss in frame rate, and will there become more stuttering and that kind of stuff? Like right now, I gotta say it's smooth. It's really nice and smooth. You know, there's no jerky motions and stuff like that. I have experience from time to time in Microsoft 2020 on landing where I've had stutters. And so what we're going to do is we're going to fly closer to the downtown Chicago. We're going to get a little lower, so you can see, the scenery looks decent. It looks good. I'm also told, and whether this is true or not, I don't know, but I'm told that not all of the photogrammetry data is in the sim right now. Again, I don't know if that's true. That's just what I'm told. I read an article about that, I should say, not told. But yeah. So I'm going to look. I'm curious about something here. So there's my channel. There's my content. I'm looking for my live stream, which is right there. Okay. So it is actually live streaming. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that I'm actually truly live streaming, broadcasting. So over the city of Chicago. I don't know if, like, I wouldn't, for my taste, I wouldn't say that the graphics have across the board are better. There are some places that are better. For example, New York, I find that the graphics are not great in 2024 in comparison to 2020. I think they're better in 2020, but is that because of the photogrammetry type of data that maybe we're not getting a full experience of photogrammetry data? I'm told that the alpha test is more for, let's see if we can break the systems, and if we can break the systems, get those reported back to Microsoft and Asobo so that they can fix them, so that when this whole thing goes live, some of those things have been addressed. So I'm going to head back to Chicago, or to O'Hara. I'm going to head back to the airport, and I'm going to do a landing because for me, very often, landing is really where, if I get any kind of stuttering and that kind of stuff, that's usually where I get it. I don't get a lot of stuttering, but from time to time I will get some. So we're gonna come in on Chicago O'Hara runway. What is that runway? I'm gonna plan on coming 28 left is where I'm coming in on. And after this, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to an airport which is closer to where I live. It's called Winnipeg. And the reason why I'm going to use that airport is because that airport, for whatever reason, in 2020, Microsoft 2020, I tend to experience a lot of lag coming into that airport in 2020. So we're going to see what that looks like for 2024. This is in 2024. Where am I now? Oh, I need to turn. We're getting bounced around quite a bit. The other thing, while we're doing this flying here, the other thing that I've noticed is, so there's a few things that I've noticed in terms of the aircraft, the overall scenery. So to me, the clouds look considerably nicer and considerably more realistic. Another thing that I noticed is the trees. Now Microsoft has said that we have seasons now, and I got to say that truth be heard or told, I see that in terms of the trees. So at this time of the year, this is being streamed and recorded October 13th. What happens is, typically for me is the trees, the leaves, and all that disappears and that kind of stuff. And in Microsoft 2020, you don't get that. You can simulate that if you like, but if you fly live weather, live time, typically like I do, it doesn't do that for you. Whereas here, it actually does. It very much does. So we're just about to the feathers. Let's just have a little look outside the cockpit. Again, I don't know if that scenery is improved upon. If it has, it certainly hasn't improved upon itself night and day. For those that are questioning and wondering about the frame rates that you're seeing up there, each time I take focus off of the sim, the frame rates will go down. I'm not sure why that is, but they do. But as soon as I put focus back on, the frame rates go back up to what the actual frame rate actually is. So O'Hara is directly in front of us. I'm going to move over a little bit and line myself up with the runway. I've been trying to do that, but distracted all the way through. Is that truly what the quality is that I am actually displaying? Because that's terrible. Oh no, it's just I didn't have my quality set right on my stream, but it's still not great, that's for sure. Anyways, we're just about in line, or going to be in line with runway 28 left. Chicago, O'Hara. Keep calling it Chicago, it's not, it's O'Hara. So let's see what this looks like in terms of landing or crashing. Depending on what happens here. How's the stream? Stream is healthy. It's excellent. Data. YouTube excellent. Warnings none. None. Okay. So analytics, stream settings. So a good tube. Probably going to start getting some trim in here and pull back on the throttle a little bit. What I was saying before, if you look on the side of the cockpit here on the glass, you can see some streaks and that kind of stuff. And they've done a better job with that than in 2020. The cloud they've done a better job with the clouds in my mind. They have, in general, given us an uptake in frame rates. Yeah, they've done, that part is to me is notable. But like I said, you know, is that because we don't have all these add-ons put in? It could be, I don't know. That blinking of the weather, I don't know if you see that, but that will happen from time to time. Why? I don't know. But the blinking of the weather seems to happen at times. And again, I don't know, is that because of the stream? Because all of this data being sent that we're getting, for the most part, is being streamed to us. And so is that blinking of the weather a thing that's happening? Is that only going to happen in the alpha test? And, you know, as they get it to release, will that go away? I sure hope so. Because the blink of the weather is somewhat frustrating. Just check on the quality here. Yeah, that's better. It still is a little fuzzy, but that's okay. Again, this isn't really, it's to deal with performance in terms of stuff like that. So if you look down here, you can see, you know, the trees are changing colors as you would expect them to be in Chicago. You would expect that to be happening in Chicago already. Is the trees would be changing colors. Where I live, further up north in Manitoba, Canada, the trees are like my front yard. The trees are mostly barren. Most of the leaves are gone. There's some pine trees in the backyard, which that hasn't happened to them yet, but nor will it. But most of the other trees, the leaves are gone. That is exactly what I would expect to happen. So we're going to come in. We're going to kind of test out our theory in terms of stutters on approach and on landing, and how that, you know, how well it does or does not work. So bleed off some speed here. I've come in a little quicker than I should have. Get some flaps out, right at the edge of being able to do that. A bit of a crosswind coming in. Typically, this is kind of where I would start experiencing, you know, whoop, I should be careful and watch what I'm doing. This is where I would start experiencing, you know, the stutters and that kind of stuff. And I don't seem to be. It seems like it's pretty good. Yeah. Frame rates are dropping a little bit. You know, we were in the 70s-ish. And we're probably a little more consistently in the 60s. But again, for me, I don't care if it's 60. I don't really care. I don't care if it's 50. What I care about is it's smooth. So here we are. We're just about on the ground. If it wants to stop flying, there we go. Oops. Oh, that was a little dicey. The wind, eh? Okay. So that's kind of what it looks like flying into Chicago for me. And like I say, I typically would get stutters doing that. I'm gonna pull over to the side here. Not that it matters, because I don't think there's any real players in the sim. But now we're going to get out. We're gonna go to main menu. Yes. And before I go back in there, I'm gonna go look at something real quick. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought it was set at. Okay. So now we're gonna go real flight, or live flight, I should say, and we're gonna go to C1WG, which is right there. And I'm gonna actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take off from here so I can fly to Winnipeg. So we can actually see it and see what happens to the frame rates. We're gonna see, you know, is there a loss of frame rates? Is there a stutter? That kind of stuff. Because I typically get stutters landing into Winnipeg, and I typically get somewhat low frame rates. So you can see the trees are mostly barren, with the exception of some of the pine and spruce trees, which you would expect them not to be barren. But this is typical of what you would see in this area. This is what the trees would look like at this time of the season. Most of the leaves would be gone. It'd be some of the elm trees that are still holding onto their leaves, and the species of trees as well is better. The other thing is, you don't see it here, but I guess this is because this isn't dirt. But typically, dirt runways, gravel runways, you're going to see dust as you throttle up. I'm not seeing it here. All right, let's get back into the cockpit. Let's get the brakes off. Let's get taken off. There's Winnipeg there. I just want to make sure I know where I'm going. Another thing, for those that are setting up for 2024, be mindful that the controls are not spectacular to set up, I'm finding. Defaultly, I have to go in and set some of the sensitivities because they seem to be very sensitive in terms of how the controls work, and I typically don't get that. So we've got runway, that runway 13. We're kind of flying perpendicular to runway 13. It will kind of come in this way over here, and I'm going to go, that's the runway I'm going to come in on. My frame rate's 126, 127, which is higher than it normally is for this area. I normally I'm in 90 area. That's normally the case. In 2020. My flaps up. The speed is sort of there. A lot of trim. Wow. Fix that. Okay. So we got a short little flight to intercept the runway. The ILS feathers are directly ahead of me. But while we're here, we're going to do some viewing around. Lots of flatness going on in this part of the world. But, you know, the scenery is exactly what you would expect to see. A lot of farmland, all of the fields harvested. This is what you would expect to see here. You'd expect to see some trees, some bush in this area. Other parts of the province are obviously more heavily forested. But in this area, it's mostly deforested and agricultural. So what we're seeing here is fairly accurate. The shades are a nice touch. I really like the shades. I think another thing too, I don't know if Well, I do know that what we're seeing in 2024 right now is not necessarily a 100% accurate depiction of what we're actually going to see and how the sim is going to work when it actually releases November 17th. Also, a note for those that are interested in pre-ordering, if you do pre-order, there is an aircraft that you get. It's an amphibious water bomber aircraft. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me. But if you do pre-order, you do get that aircraft, and you can fly that in 2020 right now. I know that because I pre-ordered, and when I got into 2020, there was this new aircraft that I could download and install. Speaking of which, you do need to go into the marketplace and actually download it and install it in order for it to be there. So Winnipeg Airport is right off that way. Yeah, it's off it's off that way. That's where it is, out in that direction. And we're going to start turning in a little bit. I don't need to go all the way to the feathers. Looks like we got some rain out there. Stop my climb. I think Winnipeg's airport is about 800 feet above sea level in that area. Here or something. We'll turn a little more like that. Again, 120 frame rates. Weather is very indicative as to what you would expect to see, what you should see, or what I would see out my window right now if I was in Winnipeg. Now, I do live in a smaller community that is south of Winnipeg, but we have very similar weather patterns. And if I look out my window, I can see this cloud system that is here. But most importantly, the clouds look more realistic. To me, they look more realistic. Whether that's true, I don't know if that's true. But they look more realistic, nevertheless, just the same. So we're going to come down, start coming down a little bit. We're a little high. It's okay. Some trim out, back the throttle up a bit. That's the runway that we're aiming for right there. So I think we better start backing her up quite a bit. It should be a 2500 right now. But we're getting there. We're gonna nose up a little bit and bleed some speed off here and we'll get some flaps in. There we go. That'll help us with our too high situation. 2 stages, 20 degree. We're gonna come in. I can already tell that it is better. By now, more often than not, I would have stuttered. There's no question about it. By now, it would have stuttered on me. And my frame rates are 117. And it's weird because Winnipeg International, it's Winnipeg Richardson International Airport. It's not a huge airport. It is a centralized airport in Canada, and there is a hub out of it. But it's not a huge airport. It's not this huge sprawling airport like you expect out of LA, which we're going to go next. It's not that, and yet for whatever reason, whether it be lack of optimization, whatever reason it is, it just it's lagging at times, and I've gotten not one stutter. I don't know if you can see that on the stream, but I've gotten not one stutter. It's been buttery smooth all the way through. Okay, it wants me to change. I've gotten too high on the bit rate. All right, I'll change that. Want me to change it to 6800. Okay, changed it to what they recommended. All right, let me get myself in line here. We'll see if we can get a little bit better of a landing than I did last time. Crosswind landing. That's a little better. Get her slowed down here. Get off the runway. And so the next place we're going to go, as I said earlier, is LA, LAX. So it is another airport that I invariably almost always will stutter on approach. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get out of here. We're going to go to main menu, continue. Here. LAX is down here somewhere. So there's San Francisco. Let's type this in. There we go. So again, I'm going to take off from a smaller, maybe a smaller regional type airport, and I want to see. I'm looking up my little nav map here, just to kind of, okay. So, gusts are at 225, 3 knots. So, if I were to 225, it's kind of this way-ish. I might be further than I want to fly. That's a helipad. That's another helicopter pad. Well, okay, we'll depart from here. We'll depart from Santa Monica. Okay.
Santa Monica Tower ASXGS. At
So here we are in Santa Monica.
Takeoff, departing straight out.
Here we are in Santa Monica. I'm going to shut that off. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So, we're in Santa Monica. I got to get my bearings wrapped around here and get myself situated that I know what I'm doing. So I don't know these places as well as I should maybe. Okay. So we're going to depart and we're going to turn left. Okay. So, frame rate, Santa Monica, 85, 85, 80. Let's just call it 80, and that'll be good. Brakes off, throttle up. I don't know why they give you so much trim for takeoff. It just seems like a lot of trim. But here we go. I always like to have a look like this. We'll pull up a bit, 60 knots. Get ourselves back in this view. Seems hazy. I had a conversation with a friend of mine. We were flying around. I was flying around, and he talked about the haziness and how he felt it wasn't maybe as accurate as it should be. I commented, well, it can be hazy out here. I've been out here a few times, and it can be hazy. Maybe not as hazy as this. I don't know. Frame rate's 90. Nice and smooth, no stutters. Although I will say that I don't always get the stuttering on takeoff. I almost always get it on landing. Like Winnipeg and Chicago, LAX is another one. I can't think of a time where I landed in LAX where I didn't get some stutters. Sometimes severe stutters, usually not severe, but sometimes to the point where you can't land. It's just, frame rates will just dip off, and they'll get themselves to like 2 to 3 frame rates a second, and it's just, it's unlandable. But I'm gonna go out just a little further. LAX is out that way, right there, somewhere's in that area. Put flaps up. Kind of get this thing a little more leveled out. So I got runway 06 right out there, kind of at my, I don't know, what, 10 o'clock, somewhere's in that area. You can see there's the tag for Los Angeles International. We're going to come over the water, and we're going to land, and we're going to see. Frame rate's 115. For most people, they probably understand and realize that, as we fly and the higher we get, the frame rates typically improve themselves and they get better. Training level of detail seems to, I think, help with that to some degree. Okay. I'm also I'm kind of educating myself about streaming. Like I say, I've done some streaming before in YouTube, I just haven't done a lot of it, and so I'm kind of setting things up so that I can maybe do some more streaming. If there's enough interest in it. Right now there isn't a lot. They've got 1 viewer, which is okay. People will be able to see this later on afterward as well, so I'm okay with that. So right there is our runway. So we're gonna pull back on the throttle just a bit. Fortunately for me, I'm not too terribly high at this point, and we're gonna start turning it. Do want to lose more speed, so I'm gonna nose up a little bit. Get some of that speed to bleed off. There's our runway. I'm going to take the left. Okay. And again, it's it's smooth, and so far by now, I likely would have had some stutters. Typically by now, they would have been minor ones at this point, but I would have had stutters. 70, 75, 80, and this is typically not the frame rates that I'm going to get coming in here. Typically I'm going to get high 30s, 40s, maybe 50, not 80. So there is without a doubt an improvement in performance. Now let's talk briefly about performance. I have talked about my specs. I'll kind of let you guys know again. Ryzen 7 5800 X3D, 32 gigs of DDR4 memory, 3000 hertz I think it is. RTX 4080 graphics card. My internet, which I haven't talked about, but my internet is 1.5 gigabit internet, which is important not to have such speed, but it is important to have speed because as we know, we're gonna stream a lot of this. So that's kind of what my specs are, and I need to concentrate a little bit about landing. Landing is important to me. So what does that mean for people today with, in terms of specs and that kind of stuff, their current machines? There's a lot of the flight sim community that is flying with older technology, has taken their flight sim rigs from FSX and X-Plane days and moved it into 2020, and have just, they've maybe gotten a little bit of a graphics card, maybe they've improved the memory a little bit, or gotten more memory. But what does that mean for those people, which I know lots of them? It might be a larger chunk of simmers out there today than those people that have more robust systems. Even for myself, I'm far from the best system out there in the world. So it has been my experience. It has been my experience over time that there are, just throwing a large graphics card at the system is not the solution. So I had, back in the day, I had a Ryzen 5 3600X processor. I had a GTX 1660 Supra when I first got into 2020. It was okay, but I wouldn't run on ultra high graphics. I would run on high end graphics, sometimes medium graphics, and it was okay. I upgraded that processor to a Ryzen 9 3900X processor. It improved, and throughout this whole process, I started to understand more and more that the CPU, or what is called the main thread, was the bottleneck. It was always the limiting factor. I would never utilize the processor, the video card, to its full extent. It was always the processor that was holding me back. So for those that are thinking about doing upgrades, we look at the specs. I see the specifications that Microsoft has listed out there for both minimum, recommended, and get the best of that you can get. I would have anticipated, instead of a Ryzen 7950 processor that they spec'd, I would have assumed that they would have gone to the Ryzen 7800 X3D, or any of the X3D processors, but specifically the 7800. And they didn't, and I'm not sure why. The disparity between minimum and recommended in terms of processing power on the AMD side is very minimal. The Intel side is better. I won't speak too much to the Intel because I'm AMD, and I have been AMD virtually all of my computing life. Not that I'm thinking Intel is bad, but just that's been my personal choice. I guess what I'm getting at is I do believe that those people that have some lower end machines, those people that are worried about whether or not they're going to be able to get into 2024, I think you're going to be able to easily and handily get into 2024. It will maybe require some, lower settings and that kind of stuff. But what I'm suggesting is don't go out, rush out and buy a new simulator or buy a new rig to get into the sim. First try your existing rig, first give it a try and see how well it doesn't do. We're going to go to London here because London is another center that is trying for lots of people's systems. But first, get the sim, and if your intentions are to get the sim regardless, then go ahead and do that. Don't upgrade yet. Check it out. See how well it does or doesn't do. There is this thing called multi-threading. From what we're told now is we're going to have multi-thread, and so you're going to maybe find that your processor is not as processor bound as it is in 2020. You might find some reprieve in that in 2024. Okay, so here we are in the UK. 90-ish frames a second in that area. Again, keep in mind, I full ultra. You saw I showed, everything is in full ultra. I edited those settings. Those are the recommended settings, full ultra, that 2024 had recommended I set my machine to. And so that's what I've left it at that. I just want to see what their recommendations are. Again, I don't know if this is indicative of what the UK's climate, trees, and all that look like. I think it is, but you can see that's what the kind of the foliage looks like. Microsoft has talked about grass. I see they haven't implemented that in the alpha test. We don't see any of the true grass, but we're going to see that. They have implemented the terrain and the tires having an impact on the terrain. I landed on a riverbed, alongside of a riverbed, and I got stuck. My wheels kind of dug in the river and left huge tracks in the riverbed. It was pretty neat. Okay, let's get ourselves back to here. So we're going to take off now. I'm gonna find myself. I'm right there. We're going to take off. Heathrow is at our 3 o'clock. So we're going to take off and we're going to kind of head for that. Again, another airport that I typically get a lot of stuttering coming into Heathrow. And my guess is that it's going to be the same as all of the others. It's going to be relatively smooth. Let's let it rip. I like to have a bit of an up seat here when I first get ready to go, and then I'll sit back. Another thing that I guess I should indicate, I am not a pilot. I am an avid simmer and I enjoy simming a lot, but I am not a pilot. I've been simming for probably 10-ish years, 8 years, something in that area. So that's kind of my simming. I started out flight sim in FSX, migrated over to X-Plane 11 for a while until 2020 came out, went back to Microsoft Sim in 2020, and I've kind of been there ever since. I'm likely to not ever go back to X-Plane. I haven't. I just likely not to go back to it. And I choose not to because for me, I very much sim for probably the primary reason is the visual aspect of it, not as much because I'm not a pilot, not as much as the aerodynamics, and although it's my opinion they're equal to X-Plane, and actually I think they're better, but that's maybe a biased opinion. Okay, so runway 09 left is kind of there in front of us. We're probably about 15 miles out, so it'll be a shorter flight. One thing I've noticed is this right here. Sometimes it shows the aircraft, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know if it's something I'm doing that's causing that to happen. I don't know. just kind of get myself set up here a little bit so we can see. And we can look around a little bit. You know, scenery looks pretty good. I think the London scenery in 2024, I don't know if I would say that it's better than 2020. Yeah, I don't know that it's better. The trees are better by far. The performance is better so far. You know, we're 112, 110, 112, 109, and I typically don't get that kind of frame rates out here. For sure not on a full ultra with level of detail set at 200. I normally have my level of detail set at 150 in 2020, and so my level of detail is set at 200, and I typically just don't get this type of frame rate. So in general, I feel like I'm experiencing close to a 20, maybe 25% uplift, something in that area, without doing the actual math. So I see the runway there in front of us. Guess I should be slowing down. This time let's not get too carried away. You know, the scenery looks good. You can see, you know, yeah, the scenery looks, in my mind, looks good. Now, of course, I'm not, you know, I don't have 20-year-old eyeballs anymore. I don't maybe see everything that everybody sees. I don't see the high quality that maybe some people can see and, you know, pick it up immediately. I don't see any of that stuff. I wear, as you can see, I wear glasses because, you know, I'm not blind, but my vision isn't spectacular any longer. I put us at about 6 miles out. In fact, exactly 6 miles out. I see the indicator up there. And you can see it's smooth. Like there's no jitters. There's no herky jerky like I always get. I need to slow down. I've been not doing such a good job of coming in, although I'm very distracted. Normally when I'm flying and I'm coming in onto an airport, even if I'm in group flight, I'm usually pretty quiet. I don't do a lot of talking because I'm focusing on what I'm trying to do. But I'm trying to pack in as much my opinion, and it should be said, you know, these views are views of mine. These are not views that represent anybody else. These are my views and only my views for what I'm seeing, and based on what my specs are, based on, you know, how I fly and what I see. Some people might be looking at this going, hey, you know, that's terrible. Why is your quality so poor? Or they might be saying, yeah, that's really good. You know, it's just it's based on what I see in my perception of what's going on. Okay, so we're at 77, which is good. 10-degree flap. Drop 20 here in a minute. Might be a little low. And again, I'm close enough to the airport that I really firmly believe at this point I would have seen a stutter. I typically don't get huge leg spikes like I do in Winnipeg or like I do in Chicago. I don't get that here in Heathrow or in LA. I get big leg spikes in LA, but I do get spikes. I do get, you know, hiccups, and I'm not getting that. Another thing that's quite interesting about 2024. So when I got the Alpha, I went to go download it, and it's 9 gigs. The Alpha is 9.02 something gigs, I think it was. You know, with 1.5 gig internet, that was done in very short order. I don't know if that's indicative of as to what the whole sim will be, because we are in a stripped down version of it, right? We don't have all the aircraft. We don't have some of the scenery that we are hoping to get. Yeah, so I should have had some hiccups already by now. I really should have. My frame rates is dipping down, 74. I saw it in the 60s there briefly. But still not, yeah, it's still, my frame rate is better with full ultra settings than in 2020. I have better frame rates. Come on, get her on the ground. So we're going to do one more final test area in terms of quality and what does the scenery look like and that kind of stuff. I do fly a fair bit around New Zealand. It's a place that I fly in semi-regularly. And these places that I'm going to, I'm only going to these places because these are places that I fly around in 2020 on a regular basis, and so I know what the performance is like in 2020, so I can do a comparison between what it's like here. So yeah, we're gonna head over to New Zealand, and why is the brake not staying locked in? That's bizarre. Anyways, button isn't working properly. That's okay. Okay, so let's back out of this. Let's go back to the main menu. We're gonna go to Milford Sound, and I want to show you some of the scenery in Milford Sound, which is in my mind a huge scenery improvement from what 2020 scenery is. So Milford Sound will spawn here, right there. Nope, I don't know if I got the. Oh yeah, I did. I guess I did get the runway 29. Nope. I want that. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So we're gonna get some snowy weather conditions here. I'm gonna change that once we get on the ground. I don't know if this is completely accurate. I have a friend of mine that lives in New Zealand, and I've discussed this with him before, and at times when my scenery shows snow, he suggested it might not be that snowy. However, he doesn't live in Milford Sound. He doesn't visit here all the time. I think he lives up in the North Island. And so it may be more perception based on what he thinks is true and accurate in terms of the snow. So this may be, if there is somebody who does know whether or not this is truly accurate in October 13th, is this truly accurate? Do you get this much snow? Is there this much snow here? But I'm going to change the weather just so we can get rid of that question. So we're going to go to, let's go to a scattered cloudy day-ish. There we go. Okay. So one thing I know for a fact is this little village over here. It does exist in 2020. However, the scenery in my mind is by far better in terms of trees, just the whole look of this little village that's over on this side. It's considerably better. The other thing that's of note, when I fly around here, I'm typically summers in around that 80-ish, 80, 85 frame rate again, and here we are now 106. So we're gonna take it off. I typically don't get a lot of stutters here, so I'm not going to comment too terribly much about that. But if you look at the scenery, in terms of trees, way better done. The runway is way nicer. Whether it's more accurate, I can't say that. That would be not necessarily true. One thing that I've discovered as I fly around, I see these cruise ships all over the place, and there's a website that tracks ships in general. I don't know if the quantity of ships is inaccurate in this case, but I think it's the type of ships that are inaccurate. Let me try to get this thing from stop. So this anomaly right here, I don't get that in 2020, yet here 2024 it is there. The weird mountain area, so here we've got some foliage that is, I'm told, indicative of what it really should be, and here it just looks kind of barren and, you know, doesn't look right to me. If I get outside the aircraft, parts of the mountains look good and right and that kind of stuff, but then you get this kind of nonsense here which looks weird. I think over here again it kind of looks like it's kind of washed out. It looks like a picture that's been stretched kind of over the mountain range. So it looks weird. And of course you see this water ridge that's there as well. It's very weird. So the scenery isn't necessarily great, but for those people that have flown around New Zealand, the scenery isn't great in 2020 either. I don't know. I think in general, if I had to grade it, I would grade that the scenery is marginally better, but it would be marginal. It's not, you know, wow, the scenery is better. And then when you couple these little glitches with the water and how the water is layered in there and stuff like that, you know, it becomes a very quick, is it even better? I think what makes it better is A, the frame rates are better, B, the foliage is better in terms of trees, not necessarily grass, but that's not in here yet. The little encampment, the little village that was there to the left-hand side as we took off, that's better. So those are the better things. The worst things are you still get washed out looking mountains. Like from a distance it doesn't look bad, right? But when you get up close to them they look weird. They look really weird. Yeah, the scenery is not great, but it's not great in 2020 either. You know, so we're not comparing scenery that's, you know, marvelous in 2020 and is terrible in 2024. We're comparing. The other thing too is it's important to put out there, and that is that I am not. I don't have any scenery add-ons, and I'm not comparing to any scenery add-ons in 2020 as well. I have very few scenery add-ons in 2020, and I haven't gone to any places where I actually have those scenery add-ons in comparison. It's kind of weird how the Lego blocks are leaving me. As you fly over it, it looks pretty decent. So we're going to land here, and we're going to make one final. I know I said this was the final pit stop, but we're going to make one more flight, fly around a little bit, at one more place. I'm doing this not because I have stuttering problems or whatever, although I do in this area. But I'm going to go there because I want people to see how good we could expect the scenery to be once we get out of this alpha stage, and once we get into true. I need flaps here. Oh, I've got flaps. Once we get out of alpha and we get into the actual full release, I want to go somewhere where you can get a kind of a representation of how good the actual scenery can be. Okay, let's go here. Main menu. I'm talking about Grand Canyon in the United States, of course. So it's down here somewhere. This is a part of the Grand Canyon, I think. You know, I'm not so good with that. I better do some search. I don't know what the ICL code is for the Grand Canyon that I'm looking for, so I'm going to just you know what, I could probably do that search right here. Okay, where will we go from? Well, let's just get ourselves National Park. Let's just get ourselves in the general location. We'll pick an airport and we'll let her rep. Yeah. Let's do it right here. So this is, in my mind, some of the best scenery that I have ever seen in any simulator, hands down, and it's not even really close. Like in my mind, it's not even really a close, second or whatever scenery. This is, in my mind, hands down, way better than any other any scenery I've ever seen. So we'll take off. Not really paying attention to that as much. Well, one thing we should really do is we should really deal with mixture a little bit better. Get her up in the air slowly, nurse it up. Alright, back over there is part of the Grand Canyon. What part of it is, I don't know, but I'm just going to fly over there so you can actually see some of the scenery that is there. It's incredible. It really is. The shore bed and that kind of stuff, like along the shoreline within the river down there. I won't be able to land there because I probably won't find a spot where I can land. I do have crash on it. I guess I could probably take that off. But the river rocks and that kind of stuff, you just see the individual rocks. The canyon walls are just incredible. Try to level out here a little bit. Stop climbing. For those that are new to simming, when you fly these piston-engined aircraft, such as 172, 152, and those types of aircraft, not turboprop, you have to be careful about mixture. If you get to altitude, you get to the air gets really, really thin, and so you end up having more fuel than air, and long story short, it gets rich and starts flooding and you lose performance. And so you do need to be mindful of mixture. You need to pull the mixture back a little bit, reduce the amount of fuel because the air is reduced. So we're going to drop into the canyon. I'm going to just kind of get down into, not all the way down, but I'm going to get down a little ways just so you can actually see, what does the canyon actually look like. I have flown this canyon many times in 2020. It's good. There's no question about it. And I know that there's some third-party scenery out there that is apparently really good as well. I don't know if it's any better than this. Again, as I said, I don't use third-party scenery a lot. That scenery that I do use, I often make it myself. So I don't use other people's scenery a lot. I use some, but very little. But in 2024, I don't know that there's a place that I can add scenery in yet. I'm assuming there will be, but I don't know if there's a place where you can add it in just yet. So I'm going to pull the throttle back just a little bit. I think what we'll do is we'll come out. So if you look at the level of detail that's in there, like to me that is just absolutely spectacular. We come from a place where, like in New Zealand, where the mountains kind of look kind of washed out and they don't look right and that kind of stuff. And you go to a place where you can clearly see, in my mind, that the people who created the scenery for here obviously put some attention into this. I'm going to maybe get ourselves to a closer edge, the side of the mountain, so you can actually see, you know, the detail. Because right now, all we're really seeing is kind of at a distance, you know, and most of the scenery in the sim from a distance looks pretty good. I wonder if I could land on that ridge. That'd be neat if I could. And the bouncing around you're seeing, you know, is all of the updrafts that are coming off the sides of these faces and stuff like that. I'm gonna attempt it. It's gonna crash. No, I won't attempt it. That's a disaster waiting to happen. But look at the detail. Like, just detail is just utterly amazing. Get ourselves back over there and dip down into closer to the riverbed. And it's just, that's just, to me, that's just incredible, the job that they've done with this. Now I know this is where they had some big get together, and they took creators on a from what I understand, they took creators on a flight into the canyon and showed people, man, that is something, that turbulence. It's not stalling around 100 knots right now. But they, from what I understand, they took people down in this canyon before they got to test out the sim and you know, talk about it. So, Grand Canyon, I think, is something that we could potentially look back on and say, well, if they can do this quality of work on this scale, what's to stop them from, implementing this type of quality of work, somewhere else at this scale? Because, this isn't just a small area where they've improved the image quality to some degree. This is, they've whoa, boy, the wind is crazy down here. I flew this here the other day, yesterday, and it was not even near this bad. I can hardly control the aircraft. What kind of wind are we dealing with? 21 knot winds, that's the problem. But to me, it suggests that they can do this quality of work at this large scale in other parts of the world, if they can do it here. So that being said, oh, I got too much flap out. That being said, I mean, are they able to replicate, other large parts of the world to this level? I'm going to attempt it. Apparently not. Okay. Let's go back to the main menu. So that in general is kind of my take on this whole thing, and I hope it's been more informative in terms of the quality. Can your computer drive it? Will it work? My suspicions are it will. I'm assuming now. Of course, that's not to say that, hey, everybody who flies Microsoft 2020, go ahead and buy the sim because your sim is guaranteed to work because I said so. That's take that for a grain of salt, if you will. I might elect to go ahead and put my old processor back in here, and my old 1660 Supra that I still have in here. And I might try it again because I have the capability. I still have that hardware, so I might try it again. But my guess is, for those people who have simulators that are 3, 4, 5, 6, even 10 years old, maybe 10 is exaggerated, but 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, my suspicions are your computer's probably going to work. It's probably not going to allow you to have frame rates of 100 and 150. But it's going to allow you to maybe scale down, some of the settings, level of detail, go from ultra to high or to medium, turn some things down, but still allow you to enjoy 2024 if you want to, without having to go and spend a bunch of money and upgrade. And that's kind of what this is all about, that this video is all about. Can you take your existing 2020 machine and put 2024 on it, boot it up, will it work? And again, I think it will. Other people have done videos about the career mode and the world photography. But I'll just simply say what they actually are, and I won't spend a lot of time discussing them. But so the world photographer, they give you missions to go around the world and take certain photos at certain angles, encompassing certain bits of geometry and that kind of stuff, and click, now you've got the photo, and you go to the next mission. It is mission kind of based in terms of getting a certain type of photo that looks a certain way. I think it's a neat function, not something I'll probably take part in, but I do think it's neat in terms of what it actually is. The other thing is the career mode. So the career mode, it's kind of like FS Economy, for those that are familiar with FS Economy. It's kind of like that, but it's more in depth. So in FS Economy, you don't actually have to get a license. You don't have to do any of that stuff. I have done, I've got my private license, so I can fly some missions. I went that far with it. But you can work your way all the way up to being an airline pilot, a rescue pilot, a helicopter flying dude, or dudette for that matter. You can create companies, which we can't do right now. And so right now I have missions. I'm at the mission stage because I've got my private pilot license. And so there's missions. My regional airport, which is right here. And so those are the missions that it's saying that I can fly. So for example, I could fly here. Put my glasses on so I can see what I'm about to say. Roseau, Chris is a grand prize winner at the school fair. He immediately booked this slot with his colleagues to fly over Roseau. Roseau is a small community south of where I live. So you can see that's what it is, right? I'm going to depart. I'm going to fly over to Roseau, and I'm going to come back, right? So go over there, go over top of Roseau. I'm not landing in Roseau, and then I'm coming back. So that's the mission, and I don't know if the missions are monetary. Are they driven by monetary? Are they driven solely to become a commercial pilot? Maybe a guy doesn't ever want to be a commercial pilot, but does want to fly bigger aircraft, bigger jets, and that kind of stuff. I'm guessing there will be a monetary system built into it, because when I first came in to get my private license, I had 0 CR. CR, I think, is their version of monetary money or whatever. I had 0. I did something, I can't remember what it was. I acquired 40,000. That's what it was. There's an initial flight that I did before I went for my license. I did this initial flight, and that initial flight gave me 40,000. When I did my PPL in here, I had to pay 10,000 in order for me to do it. Another thing I will say, and I'm guessing they're going to fix it, but there's 2 small regional airports where I live. One of the small regional airports where I live, I did my test flight there, where I got the 40,000 from, and when you finish that test flight, the trainer guy says, "Okay, I'll take us back to the airport," but my screen goes black, and never get back to the airport, and eventually I'm sitting on the ground, crashed, and I can't go back to the airport. So I went to the other smaller regional airport close to where I live, and I did the same thing there, and it worked fine. So if you run across that, sadly, I don't know if there's a solution to that right now, but if that happens to you, pick a different airport to do your fly out of area. I'm guessing down the road we'll be able to fly out of other airports, because I won't always have to fly out of this small regional airport eventually. I'm assuming I'll be able to fly somewhere else. So that's kind of career mode in a nutshell. It's more in depth than that, but that is career mode. And so I think that's it. I might do another stream later on, and do maybe some more flying and that kind of stuff. I don't know if I will, but I might. But that's it in a nutshell. That's my experience so far of 2024. I think it's going to become more of the same as 2020 is. It's going to have more things built into it that we're not used to. For example, you can get out of the aircraft and you can walk around. And I did that in the mountains in BC. I landed on the riverbed with the Cub, and I got out and I walked around. I walked in the water. I walked around the trees and that kind of stuff. It was kind of neat. So those are the things. And other people have done videos, depicting or showing that. So I'm not going to do that. Like I said, this is about, talking about, performance and can your old machine run 2024? In closing, yes. Right. Raymond for Stream Gamers. I hope you, later on, those people that do watch us, I hope you found it insightful. I hope you found it informational. If so, a like would be appreciated. If you don't like it, then say you don't like it, and I'm fine with that too. I'm more than fine with that. I just felt I had seen all these people releasing videos about 2024, and nobody actually talking about, which is what was on my mind anyways, is can my machine drive it? Can I use it? I suspected I could, but I didn't know that. When I looked at the specs, the requirements of the specs, I'm kind of nerdy about that kind of stuff, and I looked at them, and they didn't make a lot of sense to me. How you went from a minimum requirement to a maximum requirement to this and then the intermediate part. I looked at the specs, and I only looked at the AMD side of it because I'm more versed on the AMD side, and it just wasn't making sense to me how, you know, they made those comparisons. The same thing with the GTX 970 and the minimum specs. You know, GTX 970 is kind of an old graphics card. It's really low on VRAM in comparison to what modern technology is, and even the GTX version, like the 10 series, the 1050, 1060, 1070, 1080s, and that kind of stuff. It just I think that 970 would not give you really great results. It's just an opinion. So if you were thinking about, you know, if you were running a 1060 or a 960 or a 970 graphics card, you know, maybe you want to think about that. But don't go ahead and reach into the pocket just yet and spend a bunch of money, knowing that you're intending to do that anyways, because your need to have 2024 is higher than, you know, stopping you from upgrading your computer. Just get the sim, load it on, and go. You can, well, it will end Monday, Central Time, North America. The beta or this alpha is going to end on Monday, so if you're able to do that between now and then, just do a Google search for Microsoft Flight Sim 2024 alpha test, and it's not terribly confusing. You opt in. In my case, I did it through the Microsoft Store, but you opt in and you agree through the Microsoft Store, download it. It's a small download. Give it a try. That's how I got to where I am now. So I'm going to end the stream, and yeah, I may come back on stream here later on yet this evening for another session. In which case, if I do that, I might spend a little bit more time talking about career mode. I might spend a little more time actually doing free flight and how it flies and setup and that kind of stuff. I know some people have done those things, but I might spend some time doing that. If I get any comments about the stream to suggest that they want me to do that, then I will. Right now, there's only one person connected, so you know, I'm probably not going to. And that's okay, I'm fine with that. I wanted to put that out there for those people, and for friends of mine. And I have lots of people that fly and are suspect about whether their machine will drive it or not. So I've put this video out because I know, as most of you simmers know, we know lots of people simming. This will give them the ability to say, hey, will it work or not? Alright, that's it for me. We'll call that stream over. The sim crashed, apparently. Anyways, you guys have yourself a great day. Be safe. Enjoy life. Raymond for Stream Gamers. Bye-bye now.